Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the City of Gary Board of Zoning Appeals public hearing for Thursday, April 11th, 2024. We call this meeting to order, and in the absence of staff,
I'll go ahead and
would you?
do roll call.
Okay,
Sure.
roll call.
President Hawkins,
Here,
or sorry, Vice President Hawkins.
thank you.
Member Jones,
Trying to hear.
Member Cook,
Present.
Member Forstall is absent, Member Bonds is absent. With a quorum of 3, we can conduct the business of the Gary Board of Zoning Appeals.
Thank you. And would you acknowledge staff that's present for today's meeting?
Today for staff, we have, I believe, Ms. Najina Brown on Zoom, and here with us today, we have Tagi Arshami as the zoning administrator.
And that is, of course, Attorney Rodney Poe. So there are no minutes of our previous meeting, so we'll move to the public hearing items. We'll start with the continued item BZA 2024-07.
Do we have petitioner Jose Aureliano? Would you like to come up to the microphone? Okay.
Good afternoon.
This is a petition for a CDL training facility, a use variance to operate a CDL training facility over at 2129 Klein Avenue. We have the petitioner here, Mr. Aureliano. And I believe, I'm not sure whether or not we did a overview of this at the last, I know this is a continue item, but Mr. Arshami, did we do an overview of last one?
We did do an overview.
Okay, I couldn't recall whether or not. So do you have an update, do we have a staff update as it pertains to the,
Recommendation we can make, Mr. President.
go
We
ahead.
have a recommendation we can appreciate. Okay. Mr. Vice President, the petition of 2024-07 is for a CDL facility to train students at 2129 Klein Avenue, Gary, Indiana. We have, the petitioner has sought to expect a variance use because the site itself is residentially zoned and the proposed use actually is not compatible. And that is the main issue, the main reason for this petition. For considering a use variance, there are several factors that the ordinance requires, and those relate to the compatibility of the use and the impact on the neighborhood, and also if there is any, perhaps the primary factor.
I'm sorry, if you guys are speaking, we cannot hear you on Zoom.
Microphone
Can you hear me
picking up?
now?
We have an extra one here.
I have this one.
Yes, we can hear you now.
I have this one. I have this one. It was my fault. I just didn't turn it on or put it down there. Thank you, Najina. And so no other businesses, i.e. warehousing, logistic, distribution, or related type of activities can be carried out on the site. The number of trucks housed on the property is limited to 3 trucks outside and 2 trucks inside the warehouse facility. And 3, conduct of any other activities such as mechanical work, repairs, equipment repairs outside or inside must be limited to the proposed use. Storage of vehicle, trucks, and other equipment on site will be limited to those strictly related or required for the CDL facility operation. The maximum number of cars parked on the site at any time should be limited to 20. And the operation of facility will be limited to the hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. for 6 days a week. Those would be the conditions.
Go ahead.
What would be any ramifications for him not meeting? Again, what, if any, ramifications would go into effect should he not meet those conditions? And secondly, who would check on whether or not those conditions are being met?
Well, checking out, that's a code enforcement issue. But in terms of those requirements, we have discussed all of those issues with the petitioner, and he's in agreement with them.
And should he not meet those requirements faithfully, are there any ramifications as a result of that?
Enforcement, did you want to chime in, counsel, in terms of the enforcement?
So ultimately, you can, if you condition the use variance upon the conditions being met, if they violate, essentially if we have code enforcement that goes out, finds out that, for example, they have been conditioned to do X, Y, and Z, but they did not, there could be a revocation of the use, of that use based on the non-compliance of the conditions precedent to the use variance being submitted. A lot of this, some of the stuff, for example, is with the design. So, it would be allowed subject to, certain developmental standards or, standards or whatever that the BZA that would recommend and the council would approve of. A lot of that gets caught at Mr. Hawkins' door during the building of the, during the building of the actual, or the development of the actual project for the use. So a lot of that is caught on the front end, but I mean, it's upon us, in code enforcement to make sure that, things that are not caught by the building department or that wouldn't be caught by the building department because there are use variance conditions that don't necessarily, fall under, the building department's purview, that would be upon us and code enforcement to ensure, so.
That satisfies my question.
Great, thank you.
And
In fact,
concern.
Mr. President, if I could add, the petitioner has a separate operation in the city of Gary that runs a trucking facility. So this has nothing to do with that facility. In fact, some of the graduates of this facility could go to the petitioner and get employment there. One other point that the petitioner in our conversation did indicate was they would target the city of Gary's residents for employment and for training to the extent that they can do it, to make sure that Gary residents do get a chance to get trained.
So one thing that I would just, and this is just kind of a matter of practice, I just wanted to go through the use variance criteria, have staff, affirm this just to make a record of, BZA adhering to state code as it pertains to the use variances. So under our state code and under our municipal ordinances by adoption, use variance criteria requires that the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Mr. Arshami,
That's correct.
that's the staff recommendation. Number 2 is that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner.
And the proposed petition is consistent with those requirements.
Okay. Number 3, the need for the variance arises from some condition peculiar to the property involved. So, because of the condition of that property, it was used, you said, as previously as,
Yes, it's currently vacant, and that would allow, the variance would allow the building to go back into use and paying taxes.
okay. Number 4, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought. We'll come back to number 4 because I do want to cover something on that. But number 5 is the approval doesn't interfere substantially with the adopted comprehensive plan. I know that in your packets, number 6 is the relevant use map from the comprehensive plan. Does this fall within the heavy industrial area?
That's correct.
Okay, so that would be complied with. Now, going back to the unnecessary hardship, the unnecessary hardship is actually defined in our code as,
While you're looking for that, I want to make sure this statement, I hope everybody has a full report, because all of these questions are answered in your handout, or should have been answered in your handout. And the proposed use, a CDL training, utilizes existing structure on the property. The application of residential use for this site is totally inappropriate. In other words, this is where the hardship comes in. The building is there, and if we were to apply the hardship question, is meaning we have to return the site, the property, into a residential use, and that is not doable.
okay, so in making its determination as to whether or not unnecessary hardship, there is an unnecessary hardship, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall take into consideration the extent to which the following conditions, all favorable to the applicant or appellant, have been established by the evidence. So the peculiar physical surrounding, shape, or topographical conditions of the specific property involved would result in a particular hardship upon the owner as distinguished by a mere inconvenience if the strict letter of the regulations were carried out. So these are the things that you have to take into consideration. So this isn't necessarily you have to check every box, but these are the things that you should be considering and finding that there is a hardship. So in this instance, whether or not the physical surroundings, would result in a particular hardship. Secondly, the conditions upon which the requested variance is based on would not be applicable generally to other property within the same zoning classification. So the conditions here, that are requested that they would use a CDL, would not be applicable to other property within the same zoning classification. That wouldn't be applicable, because it's all residential, but then right next to it, it looks like there is, from the zoning map, it looks like that is manufacturing just north of it on 21st Avenue, if I'm not mistaken. Then the alleged difficulty or hardship had not been created by any person presently having an interest in the property that wasn't created by Mr. Aureliano. Number 4, the granting of the variance will not be material detrimental to the public welfare or injurious to the property or improvements in the neighborhood in which the property is located. Do you guys want to speak to that? I don't, whether or not the granting of that would be injurious to the public welfare? No?
No.
Okay. All right, so then number 5, and lastly, number 5, the proposed variance is within the purposes of this chapter more specifically, but not limited to the following. It will not impair the adequate supply of light or air adjacent to the adjacent property, substantially increase the congestion in public streets, increase the danger of fire, endanger the public safety, substantially diminish or impair property within the values within the neighborhood, improve access management, and will not negatively impact or affect ecologically, scientifically significant natural areas, fish, wildlife, habitat, or identified natural features, or mitigate any negative impact. So from my understanding, there's nothing that that staff. Okay. So with that, the staff recommendation is that there would be a hardship and that there's a favorable recommendation from staff. Yeah.
Okay, you've heard all of the comments and the recommendation by staff. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chair, having heard the thorough explanation by staff, I would recommend that we approve BZA 20-24-07.
Is that a condition?
With the conditions.
Thank you. It's been moved and second that we approve BZA 2024-07. Are there any questions?
I have none.
Hearing none. Roll call?
Vice President Hawkins,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
With a vote of 3-0, the motion to favorably recommend with the conditions for BZA 2024-7 is approved, or is favorably recommended, passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Moving right along, BZA 2024-08. Is it possible to combine 8 and 9?
8 and 9. Laura Hecht.
It's the same petitioner.
This petitioner, is she on?
Yes.
She's on Zoom? Okay. Okay. I would not suggest that, just for record keeping, just because, I mean, we don't really know how this is gonna go. So, I mean, you may have a split, you may have a split where one is approved and one is not. So I would suggest, I mean, I get it from a time sake, but I would keep it separate.
Okay, let's proceed with BZA 2024-08. An overview, please.
Mr. President, petition 2024-08 is a petition for establishment of a short-term rental home at 903 Warren Street, Gary, Indiana. The petitioner has submitted all the required materials and information to establish.
Sir, can you turn on your microphone, please?
For establishment of a this short-term rental home, and the staff finds everything to be in order. The petition, the staff finds all of the criteria governing the special use permits are met, and the staff agrees with them. I could certainly read those, they're in your handout, and establishment and maintenance and operation of special use will not impact negatively to the health and safety. The staff agrees with that. And other criteria, such as being injurious to use and enjoyment of the other properties, that is also, the staff agrees with that criteria. Establishment will not impede or substantially alter the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding area. Again, this is a single-family home and is not expected to change. Adequate utilities and access to road and other drainage and other infrastructures, those will not be impacted by this petition, and the staff agrees with that. Adequate measures have been and will be taking place for access management, ingress and egress. That is, while the staff agrees with that, the staff does have a condition that I will mention it to you at the end of, in our recommendation. The special use will be located in a district where such a use is authorized and all other requirements set forth in this chapter, in the ordinance, are applicable to such site, and the staff agrees with that. And the last one is the petitioner documents and presents the commission the BZA, the proposed special use provide for implementation of sustainable growth. Staff again agrees with this requirement or this criteria. The recommendation for this petition is favorable. It is, after all, it's a single-family home, and it is intended, we have assumed that will be used for rental use up to 60 days. And our concern has been that the use of this facility would not be, or this house, I should say, would not be overused and become a detriment to the neighborhood. And that is primarily because of the potential number of people that could reside in the home, as well as parking capacity. So we are recommending that the petition would be subject to availability of parking on site, and also the number of residents or guests will be limited to what is proper for the house.
Thank you, Mr. Arshami. Mrs. Hecht,
Yes.
do you have any
Yes.
comments? Do you have any comments?
I just want to say that I've been in operation with both of my properties as well as others for the past several years without issue. I've always been in compliance with the city, and I currently meet the criteria for the city of Gary for the short-term rentals and permitted. The properties are well kept. I have more than enough parking. I have more parking than I allow for my guests. I'm very thorough with my screening, so it's been maybe like twice in 5 years that there have been more cars than we allow, and it still wasn't a problem. It was never in the way of the street. Everybody understands they can't park on the street, and it's never affected the neighbors that I know of. So I hope that we can just get this approved and we can continue business.
Thank you. Are there any,
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, could we have Ms. Heck identify where her place of residence for the record?
did you hear Mr. Cook?
Clear. Yeah, I heard.
Ms. Heck?
Yes, I'm not sure which one we're talking about now. One of them is 6829 Ironwood Avenue, and the other one is 903 North Warren.
We're discussing Warren Street, but his question was your current residence.
Oh, where I live? Yes. I live on Maple I live in Miller. Yeah, I manage properties in Miller, so I'm close by.
You can press your button and ask the question.
What specifically is your address? Generally speaking, when we have individuals coming before us, they give their name and address for the record.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. It's 7413 Maple Avenue.
Is that it?
I'd like to know approximately how many others such, this would be considered an Airbnb? Do we have any idea how many others are in the Miller area?
So this is with the Airbnbs and requiring special use permits, this is a relatively new ordinance. As far as from the enforcement standpoint, the ordinance was passed by the Planning Commission and then subsequently the council more recently. At this time, this is our first special use request that has actually made it to the BZA. Some have come and started filling out the paperwork, but as of right now, we don't really have a great grasp on how many. I mean, we know that there are a number of Airbnbs out there. I mean, I can get on Airbnb right now and search, for Airbnbs in that particular neighborhood and come up with an approximate number, but we don't have a specific. The plan is, and hopefully, through enforcement and of this ordinance, we'll know exactly how many are operating, and those that aren't will end up, being subject to either injunctions or fines. So.
Are there any other questions?
Attorney Poe,
Yes.
did you use the word Airbnb?
Airbnb is short-term rentals. So that includes VBROs. I forget what some of the other platforms, that are available for, short-term rentals, but they all fall under that short-term rental term.
Okay.
Okay. Seeing no other questions?
Yeah, we got to do public portion.
Okay.
That comes now before we vote.
Right, we will. Yes, you could. Step to the mic, please. Give your name and address.
Hi, David Scondudo.
The green, there you go. Good.
David Scondudo, 6615 Forest Avenue, Gary, Indiana, 46403. The question is, when you go about this process, are the neighbors within proximation, are they notified of the request?
Yeah, all special use permits are required to have the mailings that are within, I think special use is 150 feet. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. What is it? 100 feet within the property, and then there was notice that went out through public notice for the public meeting.
So they've been notified, but maybe they're not here today, or they don't care, or something. Is that the situation?
There were 8 letters mailed
8 letters mailed.
to the neighbors, and the department did not receive any response.
Any response, I see.
Yeah.
We received one response, and it was in support.
So we received one response and in support. For the record, I know that Ms. Brown is not mic'd up currently, so.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for that answer. And one more comment to the board, which they may or may not be aware of, is in the past, there have been bad situations from Airbnb. And those, I don't have the statistics on me, but they did involve shootings. So I guess the question would be, just from a neighbor who lives in the neighborhood, would be, how does the person running this business create a filter so that we don't have guns being fired from an Airbnb. There have been incidents where somebody would rent one of these and they wouldn't tell the business owner or the owner that, hey, I'm going to have a party. I'm going to invite 50 of my friends. And sometimes they get out of control, certainly not all the time. And I'm wondering, how does a business owner filter that to protect all human life in that area, including the neighbors? And I don't know if the business owner can answer that question right now, but I would just put that to the board as a consideration. And that not only, that perhaps is the most extreme, the shootings is what has occurred. There's also been loud parties. So you could imagine if you live next door or 2 doors down, or maybe even 5 doors down, and you hear loud pumping music going into 2 and 3 in the morning, and you got to go to work the next day. That has also been a complaint from some neighbors. And that just comes from me living in the neighborhood and communicating with other neighbors. So I just thought I'd bring that up since there doesn't seem to be anyone here talking about that. But,
Yeah.
Thank you.
So,
Could I address that?
yeah, real quick, Ms. Heck, before you do, I just wanted to really quickly kind of point out, with this new ordinance that we have, there are teeth in it for the situations in which, is it Scandudo? Scandudo, in which Mr. Scandudo had pointed out. So Airbnbs will not, and I use Airbnbs, but it's short-term rental properties will be required to get, if they don't live in the property, they'll be required to get a special use permit for it. If they live in the property, they're required to still get a GBL for it, a general business license for their Airbnb if they live there, because it's a by right, and because of the way that Indiana state law is set up, they really have hampered the ability for localities and municipalities to regulate these short-term rentals. That said, we in crafting this ordinance had ensured that there was a revocation process for individuals that did not specifically, quote unquote, care whether or not there were loud parties or there were nuisances, or whether or not they were consistently renting to maybe individuals that had negative reviews on their Airbnb ratings. When you use Airbnb and when you use some of these platforms, not only does the Airbnb get a rating, but the individual renter gets a rating as well. And so if there is an individual that has, been flagged as problematic, they were having parties, they were not listening, they had complaints for the neighbors, that those are instances in which, we can, from the city standpoint, issue citations for, noise violations, ordinance violations, and we list them specifically in this in the ordinance. Revocation is part of that, and it states a permit is subject to revocation if 3 or more citations for ordinance violations are issued to an owner for a permitted property within a calendar year. If the permit is revoked, such revocation shall last no more than 1 year after the date that the permit is revoked. And then there's a hearing that's involved, so there's due process as well. But there is a process by which these individuals could be, could have a revocation of their of their permit for using the home or the property as an Airbnb. So, Ms. Heck, I just wanted to make sure that, because this is a new ordinance, a lot of people aren't aware of it. It recently just went through the council.
Right.
So, but if you're free to comment on the comments that were made by Mr. Scandudo.
Mr. Chair,
Sure.
I just have a question here relative to one of his considerations. He said that the advertised occupancy limits of each short-term rental, would that not capture some of the concern?
Yeah, I mean, that it would require, if they're essentially, if you have a large party, but your capacity is a 3-bedroom home and you have 50 people in there, then that would be, that would be a violation of the terms of the conditions
Exactly.
of the special use permit. So Ms. Heck, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I would just like to address that, and I understand, everybody's concerns about what can happen. I'm a resident here myself, I've been here 20 years. I've been around Airbnbs, I've had them next door to me, I currently have them next door to me. But what I see more in this community is, I've seen more parties, heard more gunshots, had more cars or disturbances or loud music going on into the night from neighbors. And I know it happens with Airbnbs or short-term rentals, but I think it happens more with just the residents that are here anyway. But we want to keep, the riffraff out. We do, we really do. And I think the majority of the short-term rental owners that I know in our community do not want any of that. Nobody wants their house wrecked. Nobody wants a party going on. And not just us, but Airbnb, that forum alone does not allow parties. In fact, we can get closed down if we had a party. So we have all kinds of rules, house rules. All of my properties have really strict house rules in regards to parties. I screen all of my guests before they can even book with us. I know exactly how many people are coming in. We have maximum number of people in the properties that I manage, of anywhere from 10 to 12 people, depending on the property. And I do not allow any more. I don't allow any more spending the night. I don't allow any more even visiting for the day. And so far in my 5-6 years that I've been doing this, I haven't had an issue with that. I give out a questionnaire before they can book. They answer it. I see their ratings. We don't take any guests that have a 0 rating or any negative ratings. I think it's important that we have a local presence, and that's my job, what I do here. The owners of my properties live out of town, and so they feel it's important. I feel it's important. And I actually drive by, I check up on my people. I don't want anything happening. Then I have to deal with damage or the neighbors or, anything. So I think, I hope that answers your question. I hope you feel a little bit more comfortable. I think we're all just doing what we're supposed to be doing to try to keep things good. I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing for our community. We're bringing in money, and I think that the properties that are being rented out as short-term rentals have been a huge improvement to our community. At least the ones that I worked for, I saw them before they were bought and renovated, and let me tell you, they're 500 times better now. And I think the neighbors would agree. So I hope that helps.
Can I speak? Thank you, Ms. Hecht. I appreciate your comments. And I just want to respond to a few things I heard, and just so the board can consider these things. First of all, ratings was mentioned. Ratings are not like a law. Anybody can get around ratings. If for example, I was an Airbnb customer and I did, let's say, have some parties and then I got low ratings, well, I could just change my login information and now I have no ratings. And there are other ways to get around ratings. It seems from a layman's standpoint that the year penalty in the ordinance is a weak one, especially considering that there have been shootings at these parties. I understand and I believe that no Airbnb owners or short-term rental owners would want a party like that where people start pulling out guns and shooting. I understand that. But we're talking about life and death. And if you're a neighbor and, a gun can go through, a bullet can go through a wall. And maybe they're targeting, I mean, we've heard this story 1,000 times. So we do need to consider that. In terms of the comment of the neighbors in the neighborhood in Miller as a whole want short-term rentals, I don't know that that's a true statement. If research was done across the country, and I'm neutral on this, I'm not coming with an agenda because I just find this interesting. But I think both sides should be considered equally. And there's a big pushback in a lot of neighborhoods across America to get short-term rentals out of their neighborhood, and there's many reasons for that. How do you enforce these things? I believe Ms. Hecht, she does not want to have parties. She does not want the rules to be abused. But once you have the people in there, unless you have cameras inside the house, which would be illegal, you don't know if they're having extra people over. You don't, you know, I mean, you don't know if they're bringing guns. You can't judge, you know, it's not like a background check. So all I'm pointing out is that other owners, such as Ms. Hecht, have wanted to keep the bad issues out, yet there were no filters to do that, and then it was noticed after the fact. And then the neighbors were, did you hear gunshots? Oh my God, oh, it was that party. Oh, that's an Airbnb. Oh my God, why did they let them do this? Oh, this is happening again. These are the sorts of comments that have come from some neighbors. Now, if there was a good way to filter this, perhaps that would give more weight to allowing more in this area. But how do you enforce it, I guess, is my question, because once the guns are pulled out, there's no way to enforce it. It's too late. And I just ask you to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spendino. Are there any other questions from the public? Any other questions from the public? Then the public hearing portion is closed.
Mr. Chair, I have a question relative to how these particular type endeavors are taxed. Is this subject to the 1, 2, 3 and that kind of thing?
You know, we just had this conversation. I believe that if they register, you know, you register as a business, you know, you're operating at that, you potentially would lose that. It would be up to the assessor as to whether or not that information gets to the assessor. I'm not 100% sure whether or not the information would get to the assessor as to whether or not the business is, you know, the establishment of a business at that location would then change the assessment to a rental property. I would assume it is, because, you know, if it's not particularly since you're talking about a property that is being requested for a special use permit, the individual doesn't live there. I highly doubt then that they're using that as their primary residence to get a homestead exemption, therefore would be considered a rental property and probably taxed as such. So,
and that would be at what, 2 or 3%? Because I
believe
see it
that's
as a
2.
business. Are businesses taxed at 3%?
no, manufacturing's taxed at 3%, so it's businesses are 2. I don't know though. I'd have to research that a little bit.
Okay. Is that something that we check prior to approving this kind of thing?
No, that would probably be something that we would just report to the assessor's office if we believed that it was an issue that they were being, you know, not taxed at the right rate.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? Then the hearing portion is closed. What's your pleasure, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair, given the fact that we're just starting to look at these, because I don't recall seeing any other requests coming before us. So we know that there are tons of Airbnbs in Miller now. I mean, we know that. I know that for a fact. I also live in Miller. And I had a neighbor to build a home specifically for an Airbnb. I don't know that she's ever appeared before this body or the planning commission, of which you and I both are members, Mr. Hawkins. And I don't know to what degree we have a hold or an idea of how many of these are in the neighborhood. And so I'm a little reticent to move forward with approval of something like this under these circumstances. I have the same concerns as have been voiced, but at any rate.
So to your first point, Member Cook, you haven't seen any because they weren't, legally there was not a requirement to do so. So, this ordinance just passed. And so this is the first meeting for which these applications for special use permits would have been brought before the BZA. And since it wouldn't go before Planning Commission because it's a use requirement, and it would therefore then be a BZA issue. So with that said,
Can I ask you this?
for sure.
What effort are now being made in order to find out what's in the neighborhood? How many are in the neighborhood?
Well,
How would that information be captured?
we would have to go to the sites and see what's listed as available Airbnbs and VBROs and other websites that allow for that short-term rental, these short-term rental transactions. So that's the enforcement side of it. What Ms. Hecht is doing is she's doing it the right way. She's going, she found out about the ordinance. I'm not exactly sure how. Whether that's just paying close attention to what's happening, with the city. But, from the city's perspective, she's going through the approval process the correct way. I don't believe we had any reported incidents with any of, she said she'd been operating for 5 years. I don't think we've had any incidents with her property. So it wasn't, or with either of these properties, and as such, it wouldn't appear that this would change the general welfare of the community out there, the safety, morals and public health. If she's been operating as such for 5 years, to Mr. Scanduto's part, we would have probably flagged her as a problematic property. The fact that she hasn't, I think, speaks probably to the staff's recommendation as to why they would approve of this or favorably recommend it.
Has there been any conversation regarding a specific number or a limitation for a specific number by the city, or do we know?
We have,
Go ahead.
we have not had a conversation with Ms. Hack, but in this particular petition for short-term rentals, communities, all municipalities are very much restrained by the conditions that have been put forward by the state law. And that limits our ability to put extra conditions. And as you may recall, when I read the criteria, all of it is in agreement. So it is difficult not to recommend favorably if the petition is meeting all the criteria.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I recommend we take staff's recommendation and approve this particular variance request, special use request. That's BZA 20-24-8, I believe, right?
With the two conditions that were.
With the conditions as outlined, yes.
Right, thank you.
It has been moved and second to accept staff favorable recommendation with the conditions as exhibited for BZA 2024-08. It passed.
So we'll go through roll call. Vice President Hawkins,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
With a vote of
Yes.
3-0, the favorable recommendation passes on BZA 2024-08, subject to the conditions recommended by staff.
Thank you, counsel. BZA 2024-09.
Mr. President, BZA 2409 is similar to BZA 2408. It's a short-term rental, special use for establishment of a short-term rental for a property located at 6829 Ironwood Avenue, Gary, Indiana. The petitioner has submitted all the required information. The staff has evaluated, and particularly with respect to the established criteria for a special use. And the staff agrees with all of those 7 conditions, which I'm going to quickly review them with you. The number 1 is the establishment, maintenance, and operation of the special use will not be detrimental or endanger public health. The staff agrees with that. Staff agrees further that the petition will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property owners in the area. And staff again agrees with that condition. The establishment of a special use will not impede or substantially alter the normal development and improvement of the surrounding areas, and staff agrees with that. Adequate utilities access and drainage will not be negatively impacted, and again, staff agrees with that requirement and with that criteria, I should say. And adequate measures have been and will be taken to provide access management. And again, for this, we have a condition that I will note later on. And the special use will be located in a district where such use is authorized, and that is correct, and the staff agrees with it. And the petitioner documents and presents that to the BZA that the proposed special use does not impede or implementation of a sustainable growth in the city of Gary, and again, the staff agrees with that. With those considerations, the staff recommends favorably for the petition, condition upon the following. Number 1, parking will be only in designated areas, paved areas of the home and of the lot, such as driveway and parking garage. And number 2 is the number of guests at any one time will not exceed the normal capacity of the home.
Any comments from the petitioner? Ms. Heck, you still there?
Yes,
You have any comments?
no.
Are there any? Yes, go right ahead.
How do you determine the capacity of your home? Or how would you answer that
Number of
question?
bedroom.
Oh, okay. Well, I go by number of bedrooms, number of beds, number of bathrooms. So one of my properties has, has 5 bedrooms, and some of those have more than 1 bed in them. So at that property, we can sleep 12 people. It's also a big house. It has 2 bathrooms. Another property has 4 bedrooms.
Excuse me, Ms. Heck. We're
Yeah. talking
about 6829 Ironwood.
Okay, so that property has 4 bedrooms, and it's 11 people maximum. we usually just limit it to 10 because the 11th would be a pull-out sofa, a hide-a-bed. So in that house, we have, in the 4 bedrooms, we have a king-size bed, two queen-size beds, and then 2 sets of bunk beds, and 2 bathrooms. And it's a 2-story home.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Are there any other questions?
Open public portion. Open
The-
public portion.
Public hearing is now closed.
Nope, you gotta open public, you have to open
Oh.
public portion first.
Public portion of the hearing. Are there any questions on the public portion? Are there any questions on the public portion? Are there any questions on the public portion? Hearing none, the public portion is now closed. What is your pleasure, gentlemen?
What was staff recommendation
Favorable.
with conditions? I so move.
Try it again.
I second it, Mr. Chair.
So we have a motion for, to accept the favorable recommendation with the conditions, is that correct? And a second?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
We'll do roll call.
Roll call, please.
Vice President Hawkins,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Cook,
Yes.
with a vote of 3-0, BZA 2024-09 passes with a favorable recommendation, subject to the conditions outlined by staff.
Thank you, Council. BZA 2024-10.
Yes. Mr. President, 2410 is a petition for a daycare home located at 1754 Arthur Street, Gary, Indiana. This petition is, you may have seen it last time. There was some issues with who is operating this facility, how it is going to be operated. And so it is, while it is a new petition, it is also it's a continuation of, for the same site. The petition is the property is located in a neighborhood and in a Tolleson small farms area in a relatively stable residential neighborhood. In our conversations with the petitioner and last petitioners indicated that they would now reside in the property, and that's the reason for its coming back to you for a special use permit. We have not seen, and Gina, I know is here, we have not seen any record indicating that they will reside within the property, but I understand the petitioner is here and will verify that question. Nonetheless, when we looked at the petition, we found that due to location and the character of neighborhood, that influenced our decision in terms of recommendation, which was similar to last time. And that is the establishment and the criteria for a special use permit for establishment of such a facility is not met due to impact on health and safety of the development, and the special use permit would also be injurious to the use and enjoyment of the neighborhood and the area. The establishment of special use will certainly impede or substantially alter the normal and orderly development of the area, since it is a single-family home area, and adequate facilities and utilities will not be impacted because there is adequate infrastructure there. Nonetheless, there is issues with other factors that would impact suitability of this proposal for the area. The special use will be located in the district where such a use is authorized and all other requirements set forth. That is not the case. It's a residential neighborhood and it will not be, it's not a normal use for that area for a daycare facility. And the last and not the least necessarily is the staff finds that the proposed use to be inconsistent with the prevailing use of the area and contrary to the sustainable growth of the area. With those considerations in mind, staff recommendation is unfavorable for the petition.
Is the petitioner online?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Ernestine Harper, and I reside at 1421 West 55th Avenue in Maryville, Indiana. And what was the other information you want me to provide?
Do you have any additional comments to share with the board?
Yes, I do. So I currently have a daycare location located at 1987 Arthur Street, and the petition to open a second location at 1754 Arthur. My daughter currently resides at that, which she is a part owner and operator with myself for the first location, and we're looking to open a second location at the home at 1754.
Is that it?
I was just basically, we want to open up a second location because we have had to turn parents around or perhaps put them on a waiting list. We still have the same kids that have enrolled since we first opened up the first location. And, there's parents out there in need of childcare. Without childcare, they can't go to work or basically, keep a job, a steady job. So we want to, be of help and help these parents by providing another location where we can provide daycare for their children so that they can, go to work and, be able to hold down a job.
I got a question.
Sure.
Ms. Harper, it's my understanding that there was a request, given the fact that you were requesting a special use in a residential property to operate a 24-hour daycare, there was a request from the city that for you to demonstrate that you were actually going to be living in the property for which you were going to be operating this 24-hour daycare, which would essentially be one of the requirements to apply for a special use as opposed to a use variance. It's my understanding that you did not provide that proof to the city that you would be living in that property full time.
Myself.
Yeah, we actually have Ms. Brown here, who I believe had communicated with you.
Okay, she has spoke with me, which is Lauren Price, Ernestine's daughter. Ms. Brown didn't know all the information. She was supposed to have got back to me once I told her that we have a lease signed with a landlord and everything already. I'm currently living in the home and I'm going to be an owner as well. Ms. Brown never gave me any updates or anything, so that's why nothing wasn't turned in, because she didn't know herself.
But I did
She
know,
said-
I did know by the time that I spoke with them, I asked her to send in information stating that one of the business owners would be living in the home, not necessarily Ernestine Harper.
Okay.
Right, which was me, Lauren Price, and I told you I'm currently living here now, and you said that, okay, that was fine. Long as someone, that's part of the owner was living here,
But I
and I
asked-
said, yes, I live here.
I asked for
And then that was
documentation.
it.
I asked for
Well, I
documentation.
gave
And
you the,
at this
the
time, we don't have
information from the
documentation.
Don't
landlord.
talk over.
And I can get that information to you, but yes, I currently have a lease with, the landlord. I've been living here for 3 years now, so that's not a problem to get a lease agreement to you.
Well, I think the request was that there was proof that this was going to be used as the primary residence, not necessarily that you had a lease for the property. The lease for the property would just demonstrate that that you're leasing the property, for whatever purpose. I mean, unless the lease specifically says that it's to both reside and operate a 24-hour daycare out of. The request was that this was, a lot of times when people will use these for a special use permit, they'll demonstrate that they have a homestead exemption that on that property, that they are using it as their primary residence, that's their mailing address, that they're, it's not a workaround so they can get a special use permit as opposed to a use variance.
Right, and I also gave her a letter that was notarized from the landlord stating that he knows that I'm going to be operating, me and my mother will be operating a daycare here. And he signed it and dated and everything, and I turned that in.
Yeah, we're not talking about the operation of the daycare. We're talking about the use of it as the property as a primary residence for you. Mm-hmm. That you are actually living there full time.
She is living there full time.
I think the request, what Mrs. Brown was stating is that we didn't have any documentation demonstrating that.
Okay, so if we can provide documentation,
Yeah, we would need that documentation for sure.
Okay, if we get approved for the permit today, I definitely will get that in to you as soon as possible. I can email Ms.
Doesn't work that
Brown,
way.
or, you can go down there tomorrow, go down tomorrow, and whatever information that, if it's a letter that me and him, the landlord has to get notarized, I can do that as well. Say, whatever to, with the specifics on there. I have my lease already, so I can get any other documentation she needs. I can get that in to her tomorrow.
We can continue it. It can be deferred. It would be whatever the motion is from the BZA.
Gentlemen, you've heard the comments from the petitioner. Do you have any other questions, or are you ready for the motion? Oh, public portion. First, are there any questions? Are there any questions of the public? Are there any questions from the public? The public portion is now closed. Gentlemen?
Mr. Chair, just a question. I thought I heard an address in Maryville given as residence. Or was
that's
that?
where I reside.
Okay, so we're talking to two different people. Is that what's going on?
The mother resides in Maryville,
Uh-huh.
and the daughter resides in 1754 Arthur Street.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
What's your pleasure, gentlemen? Do you want to extend it, continue it? If
I think
CPA
staff gave us
unfavors?
a recommendation of non-approval,
Okay,
and I'll support the non-approval.
make the motion.
I move that we accept sorry and I apologize. I'm moving that we accept staff's recommendation of an unfavorable. Thank you.
I second it, Mr. Chair.
It's been moved and second that we accept staff's unfavorable recommendation. Roll call, please.
Vice President Hawkins? Yes. Member Jones?
Yes.
Member Cook?
Yes.
With a vote of 3-0, the unfavorable recommendation will be forwarded to the, for BZA 2024-10 will be forwarded to the Gary City Common Council.
Thank you, council. And now, BZA 2024-13.
Mr. President, 2024-13 is a petition to establish a senior assisted living facility at 1621 Tennessee Street, Gary, Indiana. The property is located within a residential neighborhood, primarily consistent of single-family homes, and the way I understand it is most of those homes are homeowners occupied buildings. The surrounding area is totally residential in character, and the land use is in that character. The petition is in review of the petition, we have identified that the proposed use may negatively impact the neighborhood as it changes the character of the district. That is one of those criteria for a special use. The petitioner also, the proposal also may negatively impact the general welfare of the district, and the other requirements related to establishment of special use impeding the substantial alteration, normal orderly development of the area. We feel that such conversion of a single-family home to an assisted living facility is that change, that alteration, or constitute that alteration. And adequate utilities are available for these facilities within the area, and adequate, the other criteria in terms of adequate measures are in place to provide access management, ingress and egress. We find that that is not available from the petitioner, and special use related to this facility is not prevalent in that area, and so may not be authorized. And the last one, the petitioner documents and presents to the board the proposed special use provides for implementation of sustainable growth principle of the area, and again, that is negative in terms of the petition's character. Consideration in this petition, Mr. President, the petitioner was previously submitted for a use variance because the petitioner stated that they would not be residing in the single-family home. And by the way, the size of this home is 912 square feet. If the owner is not residing in the resident, the use is considered a commercial business. And the petitioner agreed to change his petition and reside in the home and then operate an assisted living facility. As As a 3-bedroom, 1-bath home, the petitioner indicates that they are going to house 3 to 4 individual, all seniors, for within this 912 square feet of space with 1 bathroom. The facility, Mildred Assisted Living, will serve senior citizens on a daily basis and will be providing administrative, housing, meals, and medical care for the residents. And it should be noted that for medical care, you would need a special license, and no such license has been provided to the city for such a action. The petitioner has not provided any information about the operation of the facility and any amenities that may be provided as a part of its services, i.e. in-unit improvements, on-site parking, or quarters for the caretakers, detailed improvement plans required for a senior facility, as well as health and license related activities. Any Indiana residential care provider that desires to use the term assisted living to describe itself must be registered with Indiana Family and Social Services, and that is actually based on the Indiana law. Division of this has to be done through the Division of Aging as a housing and services provider. And such registration is not, has been evidenced to us or given to us. The petitioner is seeking, our recommendation would be that the petitioner is seeking to convert a small home into a assisted living facility while residing in the facility, in that home, and accommodating up to 4 other senior citizens. These seniors may require 24-hour service or care. The staff finds the proposal to be grossly inadequate for the facility, and as such, the staff recommends unfavorable for this facility. And we also find that the granting of a special use permit would be contrary to the recommendation of the comprehensive plan.
Yes, sir.
A couple of things, just to clarify. So the requirement for registering as a care provider for assisted living, a lot of times, I want to make sure that we're being fair and that we're not putting the cart before the horse. A lot of times those permits or those licenses won't be granted until there is a approval by the cities that the individuals have the proper zoning for it in the first place. So we can't put the cart before the horse on that. I don't want that to be, the only reason I'm stating that is I don't want that to essentially be a reason we base this on, because it wouldn't be fair to assess that given the fact that, you know, we would be requiring somebody to do something that they couldn't possibly do yet. So for example, a lot of the tow yards that get their that apply for various approvals from zoning, before they get their state licenses, they have to get the zoning verification letters that demonstrate that they're allowed to do what they're seeking to get the state permit for. So I don't think we can base it on that. The other thing that I want to make sure that we're being, because I'm looking at the recommendations here, it says number 6, the special use will be located in a district where such use is authorized, and all other requirements set forth in this chapter which are applicable to the special use will be met. The first part of that is correct. That should actually state yes, because special uses in an R4 district allow for assisted living facilities, just as they're listed right alongside daycares, which are special uses from R1 through R4. R5, they're allowed as a permitted use. So that, I want to make sure that we're just basing this all on the correct criteria, and that we're, if there is a vote, that it's not, I don't want somebody to come back later on and challenge us and say, no, that's not right. You denied it based on something that was incorrect. So those two things that I wanted to clarify. Mr. Arshami, please correct me if I'm wrong on any of that, by the way.
No, that, you're correct.
Okay,
You're
okay.
correct, yes.
Thanks, counsel. Is the petitioner present? Mr. Jones, are you with us?
He's not here. Typically, if they're not here, we'll continue it to give them the opportunity to address it. Defer. I suggest maybe to defer it. You don't see him on Zoom?
Thank you. Was he notified, duly notified of the meeting? Yes.
It's BZA pleasure. It's your pleasure. Your show.
The public portion is now closed. Are there
Mr.
any?
President, I neglected to mention that we have received a letter from one of the neighbors opposing the development.
You hear that? Okay.
Okay. Did we officially open public portion? I don't know if we officially opened it. Okay, I might have missed it.
Good. We did.
Okay.
The public portion is now closed. What
So
is your pleasure, gentlemen?
Mr. Chair, I recommend that we accept staff's recommendation and give this an unfavorable recommendation.
I second that.
It's been moved and second that we accept staff's unfavorable recommendation. Roll call, please.
Vice President Hawkins,
Yes.
Member Jones,
Yes.
Member Cook.
Yes.
With a vote of 3-0, the staff recommendation of an unfavorable recommendation passes, and that'll be sent to the Gary Common Council.
That concludes our public hearing notices for today. I will remind board members that there is additional information in your packets, a list of daycares in the city of Gary, and training opportunities that are coming available soon.
I'd like to mention that I'm really happy to get that list of daycares. There is a preponderance of those as well. And so to get some information that gives us the exact location as well as the addresses, what have you, hats off to those people who pulled that information together. Staff, thank you much. Regina? Okay.
We actually have that on the agenda today. Is that what you're referring to, Mr. Cook?
I was referring to the fact that we got a list of the, yes.
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 Can we get to that agenda now, item?
If you have comments, yes.
Well, Mr. Cook asked, I believe, 2 BZA meetings ago for a list of daycare centers in the city of Gary. We have been looking around and trying to find a reliable list. The state does have all those daycare centers that are registered with the state, with the FSSA. This is the Family and Social Services Administration of Department of Health. They have a list, and it's a whole statewide list. So it has taken us a while to get to just filter the Gary section of those. And this is not, so what you're seeing now is the list of 123 listed, officially registered with the state of daycare centers in the city of Gary. We are almost sure that there are more that are not registered with the state and that they are operational. But we have been able to find additional information. I wanted to make sure that I share this with you. We are working on those additional information to sort of put it in the context where City of Gary is and how it stands with the total number for the county and surrounding communities as we gather the information, since we do have the full database now. And so hopefully I will talk to you in a next few weeks, and we can discuss it, and hopefully we can develop a more reliable policy of these facilities in the city. If you look at the map, and the map is not a good one because it mushes everything in there. But quickly looking at where they're located, we can see that a large number of daycares are basically located in the center of the city, and as you go out, they are much more spreaded. And we would like to know why and to what extent some of these are even operational in the city, and hopefully you will have a better picture on how to address future petitions for daycare centers. I would be happy to answer any questions. I think what one refreshing point was of this list was how some of these names are so adorable, and by the people that name their daycare centers. So that was refreshing for us.
Maybe we did the same type of list for the Airbnbs.
That might be a little bit more difficult. There isn't necessarily a registry like there is for the state to, so, yeah. Yeah, that one's gonna be a little bit more difficult, but obviously, I mean, it's kind of self-reporting. If you're making your Airbnb available, anybody can see where it's at. So it's just a matter of going through and making that list and finding that hopefully that you capture all of them, because they're listed based on dates of availability. So that's how it becomes.
That's it. You need a motion to adjourn?
We still got one other item, Mr. President.
Oh,
Sorry.
go
I'm sorry.
yes, it is in our packet.
Mr. Bonds is not here. Well, you've heard that also. I think he made the first statement in the Plan Commission. We are working on, he had asked a couple of Plan Commissions ago about potentially having a workshop, a combined workshop between BZA and the Plan Commission, about planning issues and operation of the board as a whole. The Indiana chapter of American Planning Association does have sort of board development, board workshops. And we are trying to see if we can set up one for both BZA and the Plan Commission, and doing that. In our search of looking for a board retreat or board meeting, we came across this page that I thought I should put it in here. This is offered by Purdue Extension for citizen, what they call citizen planner, and that is primarily for plan commissions and board of zoning appeals. They have a program that I thought I'd share that with you. Unfortunately, it started a couple days ago, and but it is still available, most of it. You have missed one session of it, and I did talk to council. If we need to, we can perhaps repeat that for you separately between myself and a couple other people, as well as the legal counsel, to talk about the ethics. But there is still opportunity to attend these other sessions that are available. I know Mr. Sugg just left. I believe we can register everybody for the price of one, and as long as we hold it in one location and everybody attends that. And if you are interested, that would be, we can look at it perhaps for future sessions to go through this program. This is not going to replace the workshop that I'm trying to put together for the Plan Commission, because that is much more interactive, and you can learn more that way. But I thought for the meantime, at least you have this. If you're interested, you can certainly watch it or participate in it. That was my full presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Ashami. Appreciate the update and our educational opportunities. Gentlemen, anything else to be brought before the board?
Adjournment.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. That's it, gentlemen. Thank you.